Okay, so we're starting another week. We missed Friday because I wasn't feeling well, so Friday was supposed to be one of the kid videos, and Indy's kid video is going to be all about invertebrates. That's more her collection than ours. Mom and Dad do reptiles, so it wasn't cool. So about 4 or 5 years ago,
She was like, yeah.
yeah, she was like 6 or 7. She decided that she wanted to do invertebrates, and we got a rose hair tarantula and kind of expanded from there. This is some of the stuff on the table to show different types of setups that we have. Then we have a whole bunch more that we keep over here with all the lizards. She's going to go through and show you guys some different stuff and tell you all about it. So, why do you like spiders? They're weird.
That's mostly the reason. I like spiders and insects because they were kind of weird and not really a normal thing. I wasn't really a normal kid, so I liked them because they were weird and random, and people didn't really like them. So I was very confused because I liked them and I didn't know why people were afraid of them. And I learned about them, and there isn't really a lot to be afraid of. There are some things, but not a lot.
Okay. So are all spiders fast and super aggressive and ultra venomous and dangerous?
No, there are some docile spiders, and there are others like the orange baboon tarantula. Those are very fast and aggressive, but they're also docile spiders. So.
Okay. And do you only have gigantic furry spiders?
So a gigantic furry spider, well, not all of them are gigantic, but furry spiders are called tarantulas, and I only have tarantulas, but not all of them are gigantic. I have some small ones and some big ones in different sizes.
So if you are a person who is not sure about spiders, or you're a kid and you want to start with something that is maybe a little easier for you to handle, are the fat furry ones good to start with?
Yes, tarantulas are better than spiders because they don't really, their first instinct isn't to bite, it's to flick hair, which is really annoying, but it's going to be better than a bite would be.
Except you don't want to get those hairs in your nose or eyes or mouth.
Yes,
right?
That
So,
would suck.
Now, a lot of times when we do shows, you'll see me put them on my head. There's only 1 or 2 spiders that I use that for, and they've never flicked at us, and I always put them on the top of my head, and I don't touch my face with that. And a lot of tarantula keepers, if you see them, they wear gloves. Like a lot of people you'll see wearing gloves during all of this. They wear that for the same reason. When you get exposed to things like those hairs over a long period of time, you can actually develop an allergy to that. For a long time, Teresa and I built saltwater tanks, and now she will break out on her arm if she puts her hand inside of a saltwater tank, because corals have little stinging cells. It can irritate your skin in kind of the same way. So we did that for so long, she just developed a sensitivity to that. The urticating hairs, and urticating means irritating, it's itchy, are the same way. If you keep a bunch of tarantulas and you hang out with them all the time, and they always are kind of flicking and a little scared because some species are skittish, you can develop a sensitivity to that. So a lot of people wear gloves to keep themselves from getting it on their hands. So why do we have a bunch of different enclosure kinds?
So, tarantulas are just like lizards. There are some that live on the ground, and there are some that climb.
What about that one?
This one burrows. So instead of just being on the dirt like this one is under the dirt.
Okay. So, fossorial, terrestrial, or boreal?
Mm-hmm.
Fossorial is easy because of fossils. So what about all the weird sizes and random stuff that we have?
So these over here are molts. So these
See if I can.
are like shedded skin.
I'll see if I can get a tiny one out while you do that.
Humans do it. Snakes do it. Lizards do it. We all shed our skin. These guys just molt.
So, can you guys see the really little one against her skin? So that is the first molt of a spider that will eventually be about the size of her palm. Most of these are all from similar sized species. That's just their stages of life. Okay, so they all molt and have all these different sizes. So do you keep their houses with their size?
Yeah, so if you have a super tiny one, you're probably gonna use something like this. This kind of stuff, it's okay, but it's gonna give them a really big space. They're not gonna use all of it, so it's kind of wasteful if you have other size spiders that are kind of medium. You don't want to put it in something like this, because this has stuff like air holes, and it's also made for bigger things. And if that gets out, it's gonna be super hard to find a super duper tiny spider.
So what about tall things?
So, tall
Like
things.
A critter keeper. So we got a critter keeper for a big adult spider. Why would we not put a little spider in that?
So, critter keepers are good for big spiders, but they're even not really great for big spiders because they have a good size, but not for little spiders. Because if little spiders were to get up here, they're like the size of my finger. If they were to fall that far to the bottom, it would really, really hurt them, and they probably want to live.
So, and by big spider, we mean actual adult size. So, what is this one, Indy?
So this is a redknee.
Yep.
This is a female redknee, and it's an adult. It's actually,
So do you remember when we were looking at sheds, how we told on the sheds if it was a female or a male?
yeah. So, on a shed, you can see two small spots.
Put the first set of book lungs.
They're the first set of book lungs.
Yeah.
So between those book lungs, there is sometimes a small flap, kind of a trap door, but the only ones that have trapdoors are females, so that's the easiest way to figure it out.
Okay. So when you are doing something that you normally handle, how do you get them out without scaring them? Like, how would you pick up Betsy without just grabbing her like a scary bird foot? What do you do?
So on shows, I would usually use her coconut and scoop her up. Come here.
So now why are we scooping her instead of grabbing her?
Because it kind of,
Want your spoon?
if I were to grab her just like,
Put your coconut down. I got you.
if I were to grab her, it would,
There you go.
my hands are kind of like a bird hand, and birds and cats are mostly their main predators, so that would scare her and give her more reason to flick or bite.
All right. Now, what about your skin and the oils and stuff like that? Is that a problem for tarantulas and spiders that have long hairs like this?
Yes, so well, actually, she doesn't even have it anymore, so never mind.
It's lighter colored. You can see the
Yeah.
mohawk.
So, if you look, I am holding her, not petting her. So she's kind
we're
of
in the
going
light.
out. I'm holding her,
you
not
guys
petting
see?
her. So actually, we kind of made this mistake during the beginning that we would let people pet her, and that is actually really bad because the oils in our fingers will take those hairs out of her abdomen. And those hairs are the only reason she doesn't bite, because that is her defense.
mechanism. So, if she flicks the hair in the middle of her butt, right?
Mm-hmm.
If she loses hair in other places, is that bad?
Yes.
Why?
So, on her abdomen, it's normal because it's supposed to come out.
Okay.
But in other places, it's an easy way to figure out if they're sick.
They can dry out, right?
They can dry out, and that's
So,
going to give them a sickness.
For something like a tarantula, is that heavy?
There is a weight to it that you know that something's there, but no, not really.
Why? Are they muscle, bone, and joint like we are, or no?
No. So they actually don't have bones. They have an exoskeleton. That's actually what the molt is. It's just their exoskeleton coming off.
What's inside of that? Like when we open up the molts and look in there, is it just solid? Is it honeycomb pattern? What does it look like?
It's just goop.
So in the book lungs, it looks kind of like honeycombs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tarantulas and all arachnids are actually hollow for the most part, and they move like hydraulics. So the liquid inside of them moves, and when you move the bubbles, that's how you move, like you're moving hydraulic pieces, right? Okay. So when she walks, is it easier for her to walk on something like this glass countertop or on your shirt?
It's easier to walk on the shirt because my shirt has friction while the glass countertop is smooth, so she'll slip and slide.
Okay. And what about her feet makes it easier to get onto this grippy shirt?
She has hooks on her feet. They're kind of like toenails, sort of, and they're little hooks, so
Right.
they'll help.
So tarantulas actually have a paw like a dog. They have a foot pad and then 2 little claws. But they don't pull those claws in and out like a cat. They just sit. So it's easier for them to walk on fabric because fabric has those little lines and those claws sit in the lines, right? Right. So I'm gonna put that one away. Okay. So you want to do a true scorpion and then go to weird scorpions?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's still just sitting there.
I know.
What is Dad using?
So Dad is actually using a soup spoon, which we have nicknamed our spider spoon because we have figured out that if we're using it on like scorpions or spiders that aren't usually very friendly, it's an easy way to keep them away from our hands while still getting them out. Don't run, please.
He wants to hide. You guys see, or you need me to tilt it?
We're good.
Okay. So, what is this, Indy?
This is my adult flat rock scorpion.
Do you know where they're from? Southern Africa.
Southern Africa.
So at one time, this was the longest species of scorpion in the world because boys have incredibly long tails. And there's a couple other species that they kind of go back and forth as people discover different specimens. So animals are just like people, where people are short and tall and everything in between, and it's just body type and size, and it's mostly based on your parents and your genetics. Animals are the same way. This particular species of scorpion has specimens that have been the longest and biggest scorpion in the world. So the species is considered one of the largest in the world. But if you look, so he's got big old claws, and I'm going to block you if I use the spoon, so I'll use tongs. So he has big old claws, right? Very, very strong. He's actually really cool. He just likes to hide. He's not very aggressive. But it's because he doesn't need to be. Scorpions and spiders and all the other predators of the invertebrate world are made to eat other invertebrates. So their sting and their claws aren't meant for you. It's just that we happen to step on them or pick up a piece of wood with them, and then we get bit or stung, and then bad things happen. But it's not meant for you. So if you're a scorpion and you eat bugs, you only really need your giant claws. Sorry, dude, didn't mean to touch your hair. And I didn't actually touch him. I don't know if can you guys see the hair in the camera?
Probably not very well.
If I put it against the wood there.
It's dark.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
okay.
So
We can see.
it's difficult to see. He's actually covered in really stiff hairs. So that is where it looks like you're barely touching him and he reacts a little bit. It's because you're touching those hairs. And then if you look, his tail is really long and thin. You see it curled up in there?
There we go. Yeah.
And this actual stinger on the end is very, very small. So I'll get out a stinger separate to show you guys. Got dust on it. So put that next to my wedding ring. Maybe that'll kind of make sense for a size comparison for you guys. So that is a stinger from an emperor scorpion, which is another large black scorpion species that a lot of people are very familiar with, right? So that looks like a pretty good size stinger, and I would not want to get one in my hand. But compared to those claws, it's kind of tiny. Like there really isn't much to it. That's the point for him. He's so big and his claws are so strong that I really shouldn't need the venom. And the purpose of venom is to subdue and help you digest prey. So if I have giant claws and I'm way bigger and stronger than everybody else, I mean, having the venom helps if it's something that's particularly aggressive and is trying to mess with me, but I don't really need it all that much. It's also part of the reason that if you guys ever see the Indiana Jones thing where he tells the guy who's scared of, or the lady who's scared of the bugs to not worry about the really big scorpions because they're not the dangerous ones. As a general rule, that's actually kind of true. It's the little guys that typically have bad venom because they need it. They're small. Their claws are typically long and thin. They're not as strong. And like I said before with the spiders, it all works like hydraulics. So you need to push and squeeze and get things. So you need big old claws for that. Well, if you have these claws and you're trying to get things, it makes you weaker. Well, it really helps to have nasty venom if you're a little weak guy. So a lot of the really dangerous scorpions in Africa and some of the more dangerous ones in our country are actually very, very small. And that makes sense because it's an inverse to the size of their claws. In the same way that most people think tarantula venom on the scale of venom strength for spiders isn't that bad. It's very, very painful. And the end results for someone can be bad if they have other things. Like if you had a poor heart or you had some other stress issue, that could be bad. But as far as being as bad as a brown recluse or as bad as a black widow, it's typically not. But brown recluse and a black widow, itty bitty little spiders, right? And then we got out a spider that's the size of Indy's hand, and that's that venom inverse. Tarantulas and other spiders are made to tackle bugs. If I need venom when I tackle a bug who's my size, if I tackle a bug who's this size, I don't need venom because I'm already going to win. I'm way bigger and stronger. And the purpose of the venom was to help me with the food. So then it just becomes a digestion aid. Want to do a weird scorpion?
Mm-hmm. You want to get him out of the court?
Yeah, I will.
Or...
Take it. What is this weird thing?
So So this is a tailless whip scorpion.
Okay. Why was it called a scorpion if it doesn't have a tail?
So tarantulas have fur and
You breathed.
venom and fangs, while these guys have armor and claws. So this guy has sort of claws and more armor than a spider does. So technically, he's closer to a scorpion than a spider.
So they also call them a pseudo scorpion. When pseudo typically means fake, but it's still an arachnid, right? So an arachnid has 8 legs, 2, 4, 6. Why are legs 7 and 8 weird?
So those are considered legs, but they're mostly feelers because these guys, they're used to living like this in caves and rocks.
Well, you can.
So they don't really have a need for eyesight, so they're almost completely blind. They can still see a bit, like shadows, but not a lot. So these are what help them to make sure they're not walking off edges, or if there's food near, or predators, or anything.
So the really big scorpion had a bunch of really thick, big hairs all over it. And I don't know if you guys will be able to see on the camera, but is it too small?
Yeah.
So this guy has really, really tiny hairs that look like bristles on a brush going, it's not a guy, it's a girl, but along her legs. Do you remember why it's a girl and not a guy? If your elbows are inside your knees, you're a girl. If your elbows are outside of your knees, you're a guy.
Do you want to see the enclosure?
So that, can you, they might still be too small. Can you guys see the toes on the end of the foot right
Probably
there
not
in front of my
alive.
finger?
I can.
Can you see it? So when we were talking about the 2 little claws that a tarantula has, these guys don't have the foot pad, but she does still have the 2 little toes. So that's actually how she's holding on is the same way. I will hold the enclosure over here. You can show everybody. So we've been building enclosures for all kinds of invertebrates lately. Here is where she lives. So this is something to hold humidity for her when she decides to molt or she wants to be a little more humid. They're typically pretty dry. They live underneath tree bark and sometimes they live in caves depending on what part of the world they're in. But depending on different parts of the world, a lot of cave systems can be really humid. So we wanted to give her choices. So all the bark along the back is all really dry. And then this little cave is kept humid all the time. And then we can see through the layers of dirt how dry things are becoming. And then we can make things wet as we go. All right. Can you put her in?
You can get her to get off. She's been a bit clingy lately.
Yeah, she wasn't too happy that we got her out of her bark.
No. Put that way. See?
It might just be easier to hold her to finish. Oh no.
Yeah, turn your hand over.
Hi.
And gone. We'll find her again in a week or so when she's hungry. So, since I said something about them being hungry, that's a thing. Do we feed these guys every day?
No.
So, do they eat and drink like our reptiles or other pets? Or is it way less?
They don't eat and drink as much. on most of our pets, we usually have stuff like they're turtle pellets, kind of, and we kind of always have them for most lizards, and we try to feed them more regularly. And these guys don't have to be fed as much, like once a week. While most lizards and stuff, we would usually do we try to get some every day.
And some can be even way less than that.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody still gets a water bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So here is a humongous myth for tarantulas. Do your tarantulas drink out of water bowls?
Yes.
Have you seen them drink out of their water bowls?
Yes.
They literally stick their face in and drink out of a water bowl.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a myth. Tarantulas drink out of water bowls. You don't have to always provide them, and I understand that a lot of fossorial species don't deal well with that kind of thing because they don't like to come out and get the water. But terrestrial species, all of the terrestrial species that we have, put their face right in a water bowl and drink out of it. So we always provide water bowls for things. So since we're doing invertebrates, we're gonna dig for some little stuff.
Yep, found it.
Alright, so here is a piece of wood that's got both things that are in here. So what are these?
So this is a millipede, and if you guys can see, that is a dwarf isopod.
Okay, so why do we have all this dirt with bugs in it?
Well, they're my pets as normal, and they're kind of weird. They're invertebrates, and I'm in for invertebrates, and millipedes. Right? Yeah, millipedes are kind of like centipedes, but they're different because they don't really bite, while centipedes do. So this is the closest thing I could get the centipede while still being able to hold it.
Do millipedes have venom? Like centipedes?
No.
And do millipedes eat... Are millipedes carnivores like centipedes are, or no?
They actually eat rotting leaves, vegetables, fruits.
Okay. And what about the isopods?
Isopods are kind of the same. They eat rotting leaves, fruits. They aren't really venomous. They're tiny.
Oh, here's our fast one.
Oh, yeah.
Before he runs away, can you guys see the fast one? I'll try and point him out. There he goes. He's by the carrot.
And gone.
And gone. Sorry. He's literally fast. That's in his name.
Part of his name, isn't it?
Yep. So we use isopods and millipedes and all those things as cleanup crews in some of our bioactive stuff. And what bioactive means is you don't keep the enclosure with just plain old bedding and very sparse. You actually put dirt and plants and leaves and all the things in that, and it helps clean up snake and lizard poop. That's really the purpose of bioactive, is to make it easier for you for cleaning and also to make it a more natural environment for your animals. In order to do that, you can't just have plain old dirt. You have to have all the things that live in the dirt, and that has become a little bit of a collector's item for reptile keepers. So you can get different millipedes and different isopods and things like that. They come in all sorts of different colors and stuff nowadays. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to say about spiders and creepy bugs and tiny things?
Mm-hmm. Most covered it all.
Why are you wearing that shirt?
So as early birthday present, like month early birthday present,
Several months early.
I got a whole bunch of new tarantulas. It was actually the cages you saw that were the tiny ones. And I got 2 spiders, paid for one, got a sweatshirt and a shirt and I got it all from Crosstown Exotics.
Nope, fear not tarantulas.
You're not tarantulas, I'm sorry.
We get a lot of our
A
bugs.
lot of our roaches and things come
Yeah,
from
we
Crosstown.
know from Crosstown. Crosstown are friends. We got it from Fear Not Tarantulas, I'm sorry.
And
Got a shirt.
when we were at Fear Not Tarantulas, the 2 ladies that were working there specifically said, do you remember?
Well, they were freaking out because they were super excited that more girls were into the hobby.
They said that they were glad that there were more girls there who were into the hobby. And we also met 2 guys from the United Kingdom who came to go to the reptile show and ended up shopping for spiders in the living room where we were shopping for spiders. That was pretty cool.
It got canceled.
Okay, so that was Invertebrate Day. If you guys have questions or want to know more, Indy has bunches of tarantulas and invertebrates she can post pictures of and do all kinds of things. So just let us know. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Press finish for me. I don't have another hand.